Well, good job on chapter 1. Excellent work. We're going to do a quick review now over chapter 1. And I want this to be very interactive, very kind of just as if you were in a classroom and I'm coaching you. So there may be some mistakes along the way. I'm just going to let the cameras roll because I have a couple of cameras. We're going to use my interactive board, and I'm just going to visit with you and go over with you the key points from this chapter that I want to make sure that you know for the exam. Now, first and foremost, be sure you have a pen and paper handy. I encourage you throughout the course to have a notebook that you can take good notes and take that with you to review and study and go through the material, because that will be so important. So let's get into chapter 1. Just going to do a quick review, go through some of the topics and stress some of the important points that you could see on the examination. So we're on the board. This is my interactive board, and I can make this a little bigger and make it smaller, and I can even do some highlighting, which we will do from time to time. And I do have a couple of extra cameras, so you'll be able to see me as I write on the board as well. And then we'll just go through chapter 1 and make sure that you know all the important points that you should have. So again, if you do not have a notebook and a pen ready to take some notes, be sure and pause the video. And you can pause the video at any time you would like to go back through this. Now, I do want to remind you, one of the things that's very important is that we do have review modules. Keep in mind that inside the course, this is the main course you are in. Everything's time driven for the Real Estate Commission. So therefore, you do not want to review in this course. You want to go into the review modules. Sometimes they're listed in your dashboard. If you go up in the left corner, I think there's an all content button or home button. They changed some of that. Sometimes it's right below the main course. So when you're in chapter 1, for example, you might see a little kind of an arrow over to the side that you can minimize and expand the selection. If you minimize that, or if you just scroll your mouse down below, you should be able to see the review modules, and that's where you would want to go in and do your reviewing. Because if you wanted to rewatch this video a second or third time, which I encourage you to do, you could go into the review modules, use the menu button, and you could drop all the way down to the bottom. So I'll show you that here in just a second. But for right now, let's just kind of go through and talk about chapter 1, and we're going to go over to the display. So I really want to kind of bypass the first part of this book in the first chapter, because I'm just telling you basically some of the different types of items that we will be covering. But I want you to really understand that, you know, when you buy a parcel of real estate, you're buying what we call this bundle of legal rights, bundle of legal rights. And as you went through the chapter, remember there are definitions for land. There's also a definition for real estate, could mean something totally different. And then we learn the definition of real property, real property. And real property is where you actually own the real estate and you have all of these rights, kind of like if you can envision a bundle of sticks, you have these rights that you could sell the property, you can lease the property, you can take a loan out on it. There's lots of various things you can do under the definition of real property. So keep in mind, when you are purchasing real estate, you are actually obtaining what we call an estate. Now, as we get through the material, you're going to understand that we have what are called freehold estates. That's basically ownership, okay? You own it. We also have non-freehold estates, and we'll be talking about these as we go through the material. This is more when you lease or rent property, non-freehold estate. But I want you to remember that when you buy real estate, you're actually obtaining an estate. When you lease real estate, you actually obtain an estate as well, but it's classified as a leasehold estate or a non-freehold estate. So let's just go down and take a look at the definitions once again that we covered in the course. We want to understand land, and the key point for land is just right here. It's the natural things, okay? Natural items. Those could be trees, they could be rocks, anything that's natural, if it's natural, falls under the definition of land. Now, when we add the definition of real estate to that, we're not only including the natural items with the definition, but we're also including improvements, right? Because natural would be the trees, the rocks, the soil, but the improvements might be the house, the fence, and the barn. So let's go back over and take a look at real estate. And again, it takes the definition of land one step further and includes all of the manufactured items, or just think in terms of, let me write this over here, improvements, okay? Improvements. So man-made items, and here's what you need to remember for the exam. They love to include all kinds of different definitions, okay? So be sure and just read the questions carefully and understand that they could use manufactured items, they could use improvements, they could also use man-made items, okay? All of those would be included the same. And again, you can see right here things like the house, fences, buildings, barns, etc. So I want to just make sure you understand this. Real estate equals natural and man-made items. I would put an asterisk right there. By the way, you understand, and I'll show you this in just a moment, you can download the book and print it out from the additional references. I should have mentioned that at the very beginning of the video, but I'll show you where that's at in just a moment. You can also go to Amazon and purchase the book if you would like to. You should get it in a couple of days, depending if you have Prime account or not. But if those of you who want a physical book you can hold in your hand, we do have it available on Amazon that you can purchase, and they will print a copy and shoot it off to you. But you can also print it out. And I would recommend you print one chapter at a time rather than trying to print the whole book, but it's totally up to you. But I just want to make sure that you have this highlighted and made note that real estate takes the definition of land. It's land plus the man-made items right there, the man-made items, the improvements. And then when we go to real property, notice here, real property, this is going to incorporate the definition of land and real estate. So basically what we're doing for real property is we're taking the definition of land and we're taking the definition of real estate. That's your natural and your man-made items. However, we are also including with the definition of real property your bundle of legal rights. And think of it in terms of a group of sticks together. And one stick might be your right to get a loan. Another stick might be the right to to leave it to someone in your will. Another stick is the right to sell it. And you may have a stick over here that's the right to lease the property. So just think of all of the rights you have. Your bundle of legal rights are incorporated and packaged up with the definition of real property. Okay, so real property. It includes land, real estate, and it includes your bundle of legal rights. Okay, so you can see here, and we'll just kind of reiterate this, real property incorporates both natural, manufactured items, improvements, plus the bundle of legal rights. Now, keep in mind, they could ask you these questions on the exam that will basically ask you some scenarios, and we'll go through one here in just a moment, and they'll want you to say, what is that definition? How does that definition play out? So just understand that they're going to throw these at you in some different ways. You took a few of these questions at the end of, before you got to this video, and hopefully you kind of understand how that could happen, okay? So just want to kind of remind you that we're slowly, it's kind of like a swimming pool. We're sticking our toes in the water. We're going to slowly walk out into some deeper waters, but there's lots of information here you need to know. Be sure you understand this. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure you understand here is we can say real property equals land plus the appurtenances. And an appurtenance would be, it would be an item that belongs to or attaches to the land, or a right that is associated with the land, such as an easement. We'll talk about easements when we get into one of the future chapters. But understand this, an appurtenance, they are said to run with the land. So what do we mean by that? We mean that if I sell the property to you, you get that appurtenance, or that right, or that easement, or any of these other items that we will talk about as we move through the course. So there is a definition called an appurtenance. We'll talk about that more, but they are items or rights or privileges that attach to the land and they run with the land. In other words, they're going to stay a part of that until an event or something would be to terminate that. In other words, if I have an easement on my property, that is going to transfer to you if I sell to you, and that will stay there indefinitely unless you at some point want to relinquish the easement. Okay, and there would have to be deeds and various items signed. And again, we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too far ahead. But I just do want you to understand that when there are certain rights attached to the real estate, like an appurtenance, it will run with the land. It will continue on. So keep that and understand that. Now, we'll talk about these items here, such as mineral rights, air rights, water rights, easements, as we move through the course. There is something we need to understand about real estate, and when you purchase real estate, and I want to make sure that you kind of get a visual of this. If this was the surface of the earth, and let's just say you purchase this property, and it's a 75 by 150 lot, you actually own to the center of the earth all the way out into the heavens, or infinity. One time I used the word heavens, and somebody didn't like the fact that I used the word, and I tried to explain to them, and it's something that I mentioned earlier, is that they love to throw different terminology and different words at you, so I I have to make sure that I'm trying to use different words that you could see in an exam format so it doesn't trip you up, okay? Just want you to be aware of that. So one of the things here as we talk about this, so you own to the center of the earth and you own out into infinity, okay? Now, let's just so you understand this, when we talk about rights, they not only run horizontally, but your rights also run vertically. In other words, you would own the mineral rights underneath your property, okay? You would also own the air rights above your property. That's why sometimes airports that are close by a property where the planes fly across have to purchase these parcels of real estate because the flight plan is in line with the air rights. So in other words, they're basically going to have to purchase, and I just went too far there, come back over here, they're going to have to purchase those air rights because they're so close to the airport. Now, keep in mind, they do not have to purchase everyone's air rights, but if you're within a certain proximity, you would have to do that. I live close to a place that was called St. Joe Minerals, and they mined for lead, and St. Joe Minerals actually purchased all of the property. So they owned all of the air rights, and they owned all of the mineral rights, and they owned all of the surface rights. Well, when they came in to mine, they actually sold everything above, but they kept, got a large marker there, they kept the mineral rights. So if you can kind of imagine here, in my community or in my area, St. Joe Minerals purchased the land from wherever, way back when. And when you purchase land, you own the mineral rights and the air rights. Remember, you own to the center of the earth into infinity. Well, when St. Joe Minerals, they had no use for the surface, so they just wanted, and parts of the surface, they just wanted the mineral rights. So what they did was they sold off the surface to their employees so they could build homes and work there, and they kept all of the mineral rights. So today in my area, if you buy real estate, you do not receive any mineral rights. You only own the surface rights and the air rights. In some areas, next to the ocean or in a downtown city, they can build skyscrapers and condominiums, and they sell off little blocks of air. Remember, you own the air rights. So if you purchase that property next to the ocean and you want to develop a high-rise condominium complex, you can do that because there are legal descriptions, and we'll talk about that in chapter 6 as we continue through the material, but you could sell off those blocks of air as parcels of real estate. Because again, I want to go back to this and make sure that you understand this, and I'm just going to kind of get rid of the St. Joe Mineral stuff there. Because you own what? You own your rights not only vertically, but you own them horizontally, okay? And these rights can be sold. So you could sell your mineral rights or the rights down here, and you could sell the air rights as well. So keep in mind that when you buy real estate, you own the surface to the center of the earth to infinity, and you can actually sell off those rights vertically or horizontally. All right. Lot to know, but you're going to do good, and we're going to just go through the material and make sure that you understand it correctly. Okay? I hope that's all right. Well, let's go over to continue on with the book, and just a couple more things I want to make sure that you understand. They love these questions right here. And so I definitely would make sure that you understand the difference between a physical and an economic characteristic. Physical, real estate's unique, okay? No two parcels are alike. I've been selling real estate for 42 years, plus or minus 42, but one of the things that I've always found interesting is my love for real estate and land and farms and property. And I see a property and I'm fall in love with it. And you know what? I've never seen anything like that before, and probably never will, because no two parcels are alike. Everything's unique. And real estate is immovable. You can't move it, and you cannot destroy it. It's indestructible. I remember as a kid driving through Illinois with my parents, and you could see this land where it looked destroyed. They had kind of done strip mining through there. And even though the property had been strip mined and looked bad, it wasn't destroyed, because all of a sudden you saw some kids riding their motorbikes up one of the hills and down. And of course I'm a kid and saw that and was excited, but land is indestructible. And then your economic characteristics of real estate, remember that land is scarce, right? The permanence of the investment, in other words, when you make improvements to the property, it normally will have some long-lasting effects. Area preference, again, these are all tied to economic and improvements. When you make improvements to property, it's going to help the value. One of the things that you need to understand with these questions is you're going to have to really think them through and ask yourself, is this a physical characteristic that they're looking for, or is this an economic characteristic? Or they may group them all together and say which is a physical or which is an economic. And so, just ask yourself, is this going to affect this, if it affects supply and demand and the value, it's economic. But if it's something that you can't move it, or it's indestructible, that would be more of a physical characteristic of real estate. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, in the book, you have some definitions. We kind of go back over these. I give you a couple of definitions. Alloidial, I like this. I like to remember the alloidial system. It's free and full ownership rights. And what I like to associate this with is the A for America, and the A, I know that's a big marker there, but just think in terms of America and alloidial, okay? So keep that in mind. You're going to see down here below, we have what is called the feudal system. And I always remember that because the F is pretty close to the K in the alphabet, which stands for king. And that is when the king, you see it right there. It's an ancient system of land ownership. And under that form, the king owned all of the ground. So, if you see a question, just alloidial, it's full and free ownership rights. Thought I had my black marker there, but full and free ownership rights. This is similar to what we have in the United States, and that's why I like to remember A for America, A for alloidial, and the F, feudal. Just remember the F and the K are kind of close in the alphabet, and you'll do fine there. But so where the king held all title to the land. Now again, we talked about the definition of land, and we always want to automatically think of what? Natural. I'm going to put A-N-T-U-R-A-L right there, the natural items, right? The definition of real estate, that is the definition of natural plus improvements. Could be man-made, could be the improvements. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then real property, that takes your definition of land, which is natural, plus real estate, which is your improvements, pardon me for abbreviating, plus your bundle of legal rights. I always hated that when my teachers abbreviated in college, and here I'm doing it to you. But that is your definition of real property, okay? And so again, we have your bundle of legal rights down here, and that is, remember, that would be the sticks that I talked about, and each stick represents a right that you have. I can take a loan out, I can leave it to someone, I can give it away, and so forth. Now, let's go over very quickly and take a look at this question. The right to possess, enjoy, exclude, control, and dispose of real property is only found in the definition of, Let's think about this. I'm going to go through this. The right to possess, enjoy, exclude, control, and dispose. That sounds like what? Sounds like that bundle of sticks, doesn't it? The right to possess, dispose, exclude. Well, is that the definition of real estate? I don't think so, is it? Because the definition of real estate is natural plus improvements. Is it the definition of land? No, I don't think so, because that is just the natural items. What about real property? Well, let's read on. What about a bill of sale? No, we're going to find out that's what's used in the next chapter to transfer personal property. That's used to transfer personal property. So the correct answer is real property. Remember, real property is the definition of land plus the definition of real estate plus your bundle of legal rights, that group of sticks there. I probably should have brought some sticks in to do that with you as well. Okay, well that wraps up our review for Chapter 1. You have some good notes. If you study the material I just went over there, if you see one or two questions, you're going to do great. I know you will. So one last thing I want to remind you, we have a review quiz after this. Once you go through the review quiz, then you got to pass that with a certain percentage. If not, I think you probably should take the quiz again. That's just my suggestion, okay? But keep up the good work. You're ready to go on to Chapter 2. I'm so excited to have you in our school. Remember, if you have any questions, I'm always an email away, so just reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help you in any way. So again, keep up the good work. Thank you so much. And you are now ready to move forward with the end of course quiz.